Okay, when I say factory-built house, what pops into your head? I bet it's not a multi-million-dollar architectural marvel in some high-end resort community. But that's the surprising reality we're exploring today, the rise of incredible luxury homes built piece by piece inside a factory.
Seriously, think about it for a second. The term modular home probably brings a very specific picture to mind, doesn't it? For most of us, it's something kind of like this.
Yeah, exactly. We think affordable, maybe a little basic, and definitely cookie cutter. The whole idea has always been about mass production and simplicity, not custom, high-end design. But what if that whole assumption is just completely outdated? And that is the crazy paradox we're digging into. The very same factory methods that used to be all about budget housing are now being used to create these incredible, one-of-a-kind luxury projects. And it's all happening because of a really big problem in how we normally build houses.
Okay, so it all starts with this massive headache in the traditional construction world. Let's call it the custom build dilemma. Basically, the most beautiful, most desirable places to build your dream home, they're also the absolute hardest and most expensive places to actually, hammer and nail.
You don't have to take my word for it. Listen to Steve Glenn. He's the CEO of Plant Prefab. He calls it an incredible market discontinuity. Think about it. Mountain towns, coastal communities, the exact places where these custom projects are happening are the same places with sky-high costs and almost no skilled builders to be found.
So if you're trying to build a custom home in one of these amazing spots, it's like navigating a minefield. You're constantly fighting insane costs, you can't find enough skilled labor, the schedule is a total guessing game, and you end up with a staggering amount of wasted material.
So how do you fix a problem like that? Well, you don't play the same game. You change the rules entirely. You take all the complicated, messy parts of the build out of that chaotic environment, and you move them somewhere totally controlled and predictable, a factory.
This whole method is called off-site construction, and the idea is pretty simple, really. Instead of building everything from scratch on the site, big pieces of the house, we're talking entire walls or even whole rooms, are built with incredible precision inside a factory. Then they're just shipped to your lot and assembled like a high-tech puzzle. The biggest, and I mean biggest advantage here is time. See, a traditional build is like a one-way street. It's sequential. You have to finish one step before you can even think about the next. But off-site construction? That creates a parallel process. It's like having two crews working at once. While the team on site is getting the foundation ready, the house itself is already being built back at the factory. And the effect of that parallel process is, well, it's massive. We are talking about cutting the schedule by up to 50%. 50. A project that might have taken a whole year could be finished in just 6 months. That is a complete game changer in any market, but especially when you're talking about high-end homes.
And it's not just faster, it's way smarter and cleaner. Because everything is planned out with digital models and built by precision, computer-controlled machines in a factory, you get this huge reduction in material waste, about 40% on average. That's obviously better for the planet, but it's also a whole lot better for the project's bottom line.
Okay, so all of this really boils down to one powerful idea: predictability. The magic is in the tech. Everything is mapped out in this super detailed digital model first. You're basically building the entire house virtually before a single piece of wood gets cut. This lets you spot problems ahead of time, and it allows for robotic precision that means, get this, drastically fewer expensive on-site change orders. In fact, Plant Prefab said they only had 3 non-client-driven change orders all of last year. That's insane. Plus, you get way more control over quality, and you can easily build in things like fire-resistant materials, which is absolutely critical in places like California.
But hold on, what about that cookie-cutter problem we talked about? This is the cool part. It's not about forcing amazing architects into a boring box. As Steve Glenn says, it's about working with them to keep their design vision exactly as they intended, but just finding a more efficient way to build it. They're not trying to replace custom architecture. They're trying to make it better, faster, and smarter.
Okay, so with all these amazing benefits, you've got to be asking, why isn't every single home built this way? Well, here comes the reality check. The truth is, off-site construction still has some major hurdles to overcome, and right now, it's still just a tiny piece of the pie.
This chart really puts it all into perspective. See that little 3% slice? That's it. And that's split between modular, the 3D room-sized boxes you might be picturing, and panelized, which are more like flat 2D wall systems. But even combined, they are just a drop in the ocean. The old-school on-site method is still king, by a lot. So what's holding it back?
It really comes down to two main things. First,
Good old economics. For a long time, land, labor, and materials have just been cheaper here in the US compared to places like Europe or Japan, where this method is way more common. So the pressure just wasn't there. And second, the industry is kind of haunted by the ghosts of some very big, very public failures.
And the biggest ghost of them all is a company called Katerra. This was a hugely hyped-up startup. They raised over $2 billion, promising to completely revolutionize construction, but they burned through all that cash and collapsed into bankruptcy in 2021. And that left a lot of people feeling very, very skeptical.
So, with a history like that, you might be wondering why anyone is still betting on this. Why would this time be any different? Well, the argument is that the very market conditions that made traditional building cheaper for so long, they're finally starting to change.
And the key takeaway really seems to be this. Success isn't about trying to take over the entire market all at once, which is what Katerra tried to do. It's about picking the right lane and just executing it perfectly. By focusing on that high-end, custom market, the place where the headaches of traditional building are the absolute worst, these companies think they can find a real path to sustainable growth.
Which kind of leaves us with one big final question to chew on. As the costs of building the old way keep climbing, and as it gets harder and harder to find skilled workers, are we going to start seeing the factory not as a place for boring cookie-cutter boxes, but as the only logical place to build the dream homes of the future? It's definitely something to think about.